The day after, Colin sits slouched in his chair in English class at Eagle Rock Middle School, staring at the clock above the whiteboard as if willing it to move faster. Mrs. Piers drones on at the front of the room, her voice sharp and precise, every word clipped into place. She is old, strict, and famously fair, the kind of teacher no one dares openly challenge. Colin is bored out of his mind. He rolls a scrap of paper between his fingers, compressing it into a tight little ball. When Mrs. Piers turns to write on the board, he raises his hand just enough and flicks it forward. The paper ball bounces off the back of Mason's head. Mason turns around instantly, eyes wide, then he grins. Colin smirks. A sharp knock cuts through the room. Mrs. Piers pauses mid-sentence, irritation flashing across her face. Yes, the door opens, and the principal, Mr. Knight, steps inside. He scans the room briefly before his eyes settle on Colin. "Colin Brown," he says calmly, "I need you to pack your things and come with me." A ripple of whispers spreads through the classroom. Mason twists around in his seat, leaning back just enough to whisper, "What did you do?" Colin shrugs, confused, and whispers back, "Nothing." He stuffs his notebook and pencil into his backpack, heart beginning to thud a little harder now, and stands. Mrs. Piers watches him closely but says nothing. Colin follows Mr. Knight down the hallway, the sound of their footsteps echoing against the lockers. They don't speak. The silence stretches, heavy and unsettling. When they reach the office, Mr. Knight opens the door and gestures for him to enter. Colin stops short. Inside the office sit two police officers. Beside them stands one of the caretakers named Linda from the group home, her hands clasped tightly in front of her. Every trace of boredom drains from him in an instant. His stomach twists as the door closes softly behind him. Mr. Knight closes the door behind them and gestures toward the chair opposite his desk. "Go ahead and sit down, Colin," he says, his tone calm and deliberate. "You're not in trouble. That doesn't help much." Colin lowers himself into the chair anyway, his backpack still slung over one shoulder, eyes flicking briefly to the two uniformed officers seated against the wall. Mr. Knight clears his throat. "These officers are here to speak with you. They just have a few questions." He turns slightly. "This is Officer Daniel Reeves from the Boise Police Department," he says, nodding toward the younger of the two, a man with tired eyes and a notebook resting on his knee. Then he gestures to the other officer. "And this is Detective Mark Holloway from Roseville, California." At that, the older man leans forward just a little. He doesn't smile, but his expression is gentle, careful. He studies Colin's face with an intensity that feels different from curiosity, like recognition or something close to it. "Hi, Colin," Detective Holloway says. His voice is steady, practiced. "We're not here to scare you." Colin nods slowly, unsure what to do with the sudden tightness in his chest. Beside the desk, Linda shifts her weight, offering him a small, reassuring smile that doesn't quite reach her eyes. "Detective Holloway," Mr. Knight continues, "was involved in a case many years ago. A missing children's case." The detective's gaze doesn't leave Colin as he speaks again. "Triplets," he says quietly. Colin swallows. He doesn't know why, but the word sends a strange ripple through him, like a sound echoing in a place he didn't know existed. "We just want to talk," Detective Holloway adds. "Ask you a few things about your past. That's all." Colin nods again, more slowly this time. "Okay," he says. And somewhere deep beneath the confusion and unease, something old and restless begins to stir. Detective Holloway is the one who speaks first. He keeps his voice low, unhurried, as if afraid of pushing too hard. "Colin," he says, "can you tell us about your earliest memories? Not stories you've been told, just things you remember yourself." Colin shifts in his chair. He stares down at his hands, turning the question over in his mind. "They're not like real memories," he says finally. "More like pieces." He looks up again, searching their faces as if for permission to continue. "I remember warmth," he says. "Like being somewhere really warm. Not burning hot, just safe. I don't know where it was." His fingers drift unconsciously to the faint scar above his left eye. "I remember falling. Off a swing, I think." He taps the scar lightly. "This happened then." The room is very still now. "There was a woman," Colin goes on. "She picked me up. She held me and told me it was okay. I don't know who she was. I can't see her face clearly. I just remember feeling better." Detective Holloway swallows, his jaw tightening for the briefest moment. "I think I've been to Disneyland," Colin adds, almost apologetically. "I remember running away from Mickey Mouse because he wanted to hug me." A small, embarrassed smile flickers across his face. "I was scared of him." Officer Reeves scribbles something in his notebook. Colin hesitates, then continues. And sometimes I see other kids, boys. They're blonde like me. I don't know. They're just there and then they're gone. He shakes his head slowly. That's it. I don't really remember anything before the Foster family. Nothing clear. Just those bits. Silence settles over the office, thick and heavy. Detective Holloway leans back in his chair, eyes glistening despite his careful control. Those fragments, warmth, the swing, Disneyland, fit together too well. Thank you, Colin, he says quietly. That was more than enough. Detective Holloway exhales slowly, as if steadying himself, then leans forward. His hands rest flat on his knees. Colin, he says gently, I need to explain why we're here. The room feels smaller somehow. Colin nods, his throat tight. Many years ago in 2009, Holloway continues, I led an investigation into the kidnapping of 3 boys. They were triplets. The Parker Triplets, Cooper, Carter, and Connor. They were taken when they were 3 years old. Colin's brow furrows. He listens without interrupting. Their parents never stopped looking for them, the detective says. Neither did the police. We followed every lead. We never found the people who took them. And we never found the boys. He pauses, choosing his next words carefully. Recently, information came to light that led us to you. Colin shifts in his chair. Linda takes a small step closer but says nothing. Holloway meets Colin's eyes. Based on physical identifiers, timelines, and things you just told us, your memories, your scars, your birthmark, I believe you are identical to one of those boys. Colin's heart begins to pound. Identical how? He asks quietly. The detective doesn't look away. I believe you are Connor Parker. The name lands between them like something solid. Heavy. Colin stares at Holloway, waiting for the feeling that's supposed to come. Shock, fear, recognition. Instead, there's only a strange, hollow buzzing in his ears. Connor, he repeats softly, testing it. The name feels unfamiliar in his mouth. Not wrong. Not right. Just there. I don't remember being kidnapped, he says. That's not unusual, Holloway replies. You were very young. Trauma can erase or blur memories. Colin looks down at his hands again. So I had parents? The detective's voice softens. You do. They've been waiting for you for a very long time. Silence fills the office. Colin leans back in the chair, breathing shallowly now, his mind racing to catch up with a life he didn't know existed, another name, another home, 2 brothers he can't remember. What happens now? He asks. Detective Holloway holds his gaze. Now, he says, we take this one step at a time. Colin swallows, then lets out a small, uncertain breath that almost turns into a joke. So, if I'm Connor, he says, forcing a crooked smile, where are the other 2? Cooper and Carter, right? The names come easier than he expects. Detective Holloway's expression changes, not dramatically, but enough. The warmth dims, replaced by something heavier. They're still missing, he says quietly. The smile slips from Colin's face. We never stopped looking for them either, Holloway continues. But as of today, we don't know where they are or what happened to them. Colin nods slowly, absorbing that in silence. 2 brothers he never knew. 2 empty spaces. You're not an only child, though, Holloway adds gently. Colin looks up again. You have a younger brother. His name is Ethan. He's 9 years old. He was born about 4 months after the kidnapping. Something tightens in Colin's chest at that, an unexpected ache, sharp and confusing. Holloway goes on, his voice steady, careful not to overwhelm him. Your parents are Amber and Josh Parker. They live in Roseville, California. It's a quiet neighborhood. Yellow house. Tree-lined streets. Images form in Colin's mind without permission, sunlight, warmth, the vague sense of safety he remembered earlier. They never gave up, Holloway says. Not for a day. Your mother, she kept your room exactly the same. Colin looks down, blinking hard. They don't even know me, he says. They know who you were, Holloway replies softly. And they've spent 10 years wondering who you became. The office is quiet now. No one rushes him. Colin leans back in the chair, hands gripping the edge of the seat. His whole life suddenly split into a before and after he never saw coming. A different name, a different home. A family waiting somewhere far away. Roseville, he repeats quietly, as if saying it out loud might make it real. Colin lets out a small, nervous huff and tries, instinctively, to lighten the weight pressing down on him. So, he says, glancing up at Holloway, does that mean I've been celebrating my birthday on the wrong day this whole time? For a brief moment, something almost like a smile touches the detective's face. Yes, Holloway says gently, it does. He pauses, then continues, his voice is steady and certain. You were born on February 16, 2006. The date hangs in the air. Colin blinks. So, I'm not 12? No, Holloway replies. You're 13. Colin leans back in his chair, staring at the ceiling. Huh. Guess I owe myself an extra year. Linda lets out a soft, surprised laugh, quickly covering her mouth. Even Officer Reeves shifts slightly, easing the tension for just a second. But inside Colin, the joke doesn't quite land. A real birthday. A real date. Not a guess. Not a placeholder. February 16, 2006. He repeats it silently, trying to imagine candles on a cake, someone singing his name, Connor. 13 years old. For the first time in his life, his age feels like something solid. Detective Holloway reaches into his jacket and pulls out a tablet. He hesitates for just a moment, then turns the screen toward Colin. I want to show you something, he says quietly. He taps the screen. The first image fills the display. 3 small boys sit side by side, close enough that their shoulders touch. They are blonde, blue-eyed, and completely identical. Same smiles, same shape of face, same curious expressions frozen in time. Colin's breath catches. That's weird, he murmurs. Those are the Parker Triplets, Holloway says. Cooper, Carter, and Connor. He swipes to the next photo. The boys are younger here. A woman with warm eyes and a wide smile holds 2 of them, while a man stands close behind holding the third. They smile and look happy. Colin studies the adults without quite understanding why his chest feels tight. That's Amber and Josh Parker, Holloway explains. Another swipe. This time it's a close-up portrait of one boy, Connor. The resemblance hits harder now. Colin leans forward without realizing it. Above the left eye, faint but visible, is the same scar he touches absent-mindedly every time he's nervous. That's me, Colin whispers. Holloway nods but doesn't interrupt. He moves to the next image. The boy in the photo is lying on his stomach in the grass, sun warming his naked back. On the left shoulder blade, clear as day, is the large birthmark, almost heart-shaped. Colin's fingers curl into his palms. His stomach flips. I have that, he says, louder now. I know, Holloway replies. The next photo is different, newer. A family stands together in front of a familiar 2-story yellow house. Amber and Josh are older now, their smiles softer, more guarded. Between them stands a boy of about 9, brown-haired and grinning openly. That's Ethan, Holloway says. Your younger brother. Colin stares at the image longer than the others. Something about it hurts in a quiet, unfamiliar way. Holloway taps again, and a series of images appears, age progressions created over the years. Faces growing older, features sharpening, childhood rounding into adolescence. Colin watches, transfixed. One of the later images makes his breath hitch. The boy staring back at him looks exactly like the person he sees in the mirror every morning. That's me, he says again, but this time there's no disbelief left in his voice. Holloway nods slowly. Every age progression ended up looking like you. Colin leans back in the chair, overwhelmed. The room feels too quiet, too real. A life before the one he remembers. A face that has always been his, even when he didn't know the name that belonged to it. Colin stares at the tablet for a long time after the last image fades, his reflection faintly visible in the darkened screen. The room seems to recede, the edges blurring as everything inside him slowly rearranges. It isn't one thing that convinces him, not the scar, not the birthmark, not even the face that looks back at him from the age-progressed images. It's the way all of it fits together, seamless and undeniable. The warmth he remembers, the swing, Disneyland, the woman who held him. Connor, he says quietly. The name settles into him differently now. He feels it in his chest, in his throat, as if it has always been there, waiting. He looks up at Detective Holloway, his eyes wide but steady. I'm him, he says. It's not a question. Holloway nods once. Yes. You are Connor Parker. Your full name is Connor Joshua Parker, and you were born February 16, 2006. As the youngest of the Parker Triplets, Colin exhales shackily, pressing his hands flat against his thighs as if to keep himself anchored. 2 lives overlap inside him. Colin, who grew up moving from place to place, and Connor, who once had a home, brothers, parents who never stopped loving him. So, Colin is just a name, he says. It's the name you were given, Holloway replies gently. It matters, but it doesn't erase who you were before. Colin nods slowly. He doesn't know yet what to do with the truth or how to carry it forward. He only knows this much with a clarity that leaves no room for doubt. He was not abandoned. He was taken. And now, after 10 years of not knowing who he was, he finally does. Detective Holloway lets the silence settle before speaking again. His voice is calm, careful, respectful of what Colin is processing. There's one more step we need to take, he says, just to make everything official. Colin looks up. What kind of step? We'd like you to come with us to the station, Holloway explains. We'll take a DNA sample. It's a simple cheek swab. It won't hurt. He holds Colin's gaze, making sure he understands. It will confirm what we already believe. It will officially confirm your identity. Colin nods slowly. His heart is still racing, but beneath the fear there is something else now, certainty, direction. Okay, he says. Let's do it. Linda steps forward immediately. I'll come with him, she says, her voice firm but kind. Holloway nods. Of course. Colin stands, slinging his backpack over his shoulder out of habit, then pauses. For the first time, the weight of that backpack feels symbolic, everything he has carried without knowing why. As they head for the door, Colin takes one last look around the office. Eagle Rock Middle School. The place where he had been a student, a friend, just a kid with a borrowed name. He doesn't know what waits for him at the station or after. But he knows this, the truth is no longer something happening to him. It's something he is ready to face. The police station is quieter than Colin expects. Muted voices, the steady hum of fluorescent lights, the smell of coffee and disinfectant hanging in the air. Everything feels official, serious, as if the walls themselves understand the weight of what is happening. A technician takes the DNA sample, swabbing the inside of Colin's cheek with practiced efficiency. It's over in seconds. Too easy, he thinks, for something that might change everything. Detective Holloway explains that it's being rushed. An urgent priority. The results will come back within 2 days at the latest. 2 days. The number echoes in Colin's head as they leave the station. Holloway drives them back to the group home in silence for a while, the city passing by outside the window. When they stop in front of the familiar building, he turns in his seat to face Colin. I know this is a lot, he says. But until we have the results, I need you to do something for me. Colin meets his eyes. What? Keep living your life, Holloway says. Go to school, hang out with your friends, and stick to your routine. Just for a couple more days. Colin lets out a breath that sounds almost like a laugh. Yeah, sure. No problem. Holloway allows himself to smile. We'll be in touch. As soon as we know anything, I'll call. Colin nods, then hesitates. Do they know? My parents? They do, Holloway answers. And they're waiting. That word stays with him as he steps out of the car. Waiting. As Linda opens the door and leads him inside, the group home feels the same as always. Familiar, noisy, safe. And yet, everything has changed. For the first time in his life, Colin isn't just waiting for something to happen. He's waiting to become someone he already is. That evening, Colin sits sprawled on the floor of the common room with Mason, Tyler, and a handful of the other boys. Someone has dragged a laptop onto the coffee table, its screen casting a pale glow over their faces. The usual noise, video games, arguments over snacks, the TV murmuring in the background, has faded into something quieter, more focused. Okay, Mason says slowly, eyeing Colin. Start from the beginning. And don't mess with us. Colin swallows. His hands feel clammy, but once he starts talking, the words come easier than he expects. He tells them about the police at school, about Detective Holloway, about the Parker Triplets, Cooper, Carter, and Connor, about the kidnapping when they were 3 years old. And they think. Tyler trails off. They think I'm Connor, Colin says. The room goes quiet. That's messed up, one of the boys mutters. Mason stares at him, searching his face. Do you think it's true? Colin hesitates, then nods. Yeah, I do. Mason opens the laptop wider and starts typing. Parker Triplets kidnapping, he reads aloud. The screen fills with articles. Old headlines. Blurry photos. 3 identical blonde boys smiling at the camera. Colin leans forward, his chest tightening as he recognizes himself, not as he is now, but as someone he used to be. Dude, Tyler whispers. That's you. They scroll further. More articles. Interviews. Candlelight vigils. And then they find it, a Facebook page, Bring Back Our Boys. Amber and Josh's page. Post after post stretches back through the years. Photos of 3 small beds. Birthday messages written to children who weren't there to read them. Christmas wishes. Anniversaries of the day the boys disappeared. Colin's throat tightens as he reads, 9 years today. We still believe. We still wait. Mason says nothing now. Neither does Tyler. One of the boys shifts closer, peering at the screen over Colin's shoulder. They never stopped, someone says quietly. Colin shakes his head, blinking hard. I didn't even know they existed. Mason nudges him gently with his shoulder. They know you exist now. Colin leans back against the couch, overwhelmed. Connor Parker, a boy with parents who search for him. Brothers still missing. A whole life running parallel to his own. Around him, the other boys sit in silence, the weight of the story settling over them. For the first time, Colin isn't just telling a story about who he might be. He's sharing it with people who see him, not as a mystery, not as a headline, but as a friend whose world has just been turned inside out. Mason leans back on his hands, shaking his head slowly as he looks from the laptop to Colin. Dude, he says, half in awe, half stunned. This is going to be everywhere. Like newspapers, TV, the whole country. He lets out a short, disbelieving laugh. You're going to be famous. People all over the US, maybe even the world, are going to know who you are. Colin's stomach twists at the thought. The word famous doesn't feel right. Not like this. Not because of something that was taken from him. I don't want that, he says quietly. Mason shrugs, softer now. Yeah, I know. I'm just saying. Tyler closes the laptop partway, as if to shield Colin from the screen. Still, he adds, you kinda already are. Those people have been looking for you for 10 years. Colin stares at his hands again. Famous, known, seen. All his life, he's moved through the world unnoticed, just another kid in the system. Now, suddenly, there's the possibility of being seen by everyone, by strangers, by cameras, by people who think they know his story before he does. Mason nudges him again, lighter this time. Hey, whatever happens, you're still you. Okay, Colin nods, though he isn't sure who you is anymore. Outside, the evening settles in, ordinary and quiet. Inside, Colin feels the edge of something new approaching, too big to name, too close to ignore. Colin does what Detective Holloway asked. He tries to live as normally as possible. He goes to school the next day, sits through classes, answers questions when he's called on. Mrs. Pierce gives him a sharp look when his mind drifts, but she says nothing. In the hallways, everything looks the same, lockers, noise, laughter, but it all feels slightly out of sync, like he's watching his life from half a step behind. He spends time with Mason, Tyler, and the other boys, joking when they joke, hanging out in the common room playing games. They treat him the same, which helps more than he expected. No one pushes him. No one asks the wrong questions. At night, though, it's different. When the group home quiets down and the lights are low, Colin lies on his bed with his phone glowing in the dark. He scrolls through Amber and Josh's Facebook page again and again, studying every post. There are hundreds of photos, 3 identical boys laughing in the backyard, covered in ice cream, dressed in Halloween costumes. There are short videos too, shaky clips of toddlers running through sprinklers, voices calling their names. Connor, a woman's voice says in one of them. His chest tightens every time he hears it. He reads old news articles about the kidnapping and the investigation, about the tunnel, the lack of witnesses, the dead ends. He learns how his parents gave interviews, how his father searched relentlessly, how his mother never let the story fade. Somewhere along the way, something shifts. He stops thinking of himself as Colin. In his thoughts, the name Connor takes its place naturally, quietly, as if it's always been waiting. Colin begins to feel like a layer he's been wearing. Connor feels closer to the bone. He thinks about his brothers constantly. Cooper and Carter. Where they might be. What kind of lives they've lived. Whether they remember him, if they ever did. He thinks about his parents too. About Amber and Josh. About the yellow house in Roseville. About what it will be like to stand in front of them, to see their faces when they look at him. Will they recognize him? Will they like who he has become? These questions follow him everywhere, filling the quiet moments, settling in beside him at night. And as the hours crawl toward the DNA results, Colin waits, balanced between 2 lives, unsure which one he's about to step fully into. On the second day, just after dinner, a familiar car pulls up outside the group home. Colin recognizes it immediately. His stomach flips. Detective Holloway steps inside a few minutes later. He speaks briefly with one of the staff members, then asks if he and Colin can sit somewhere quiet. No urgency in his voice. No drama. That alone tells Colin everything. They sit across from each other in a small, softly lit room near the back of the building. The hum of the house carries faintly through the walls. Laughter, a television, the ordinary sounds of life continuing as usual. Holloway doesn't rush. He folds his hands, meets Colin's eyes. The DNA results came back, he says. Colin holds his breath. They confirm it, Holloway continues. There's no doubt. You are genetically identical to Connor Parker. The words land quietly without ceremony. They don't explode, they settle. Colin nods once, slowly. He had known. Deep down, he had already known. But hearing it out loud changes everything. So that's it, he says. Holloway gives a small, respectful nod. That's it. No mistake? None, Holloway replies. There is absolutely no room for doubt. Silence stretches between them. Colin's hands tremble slightly in his lap, not from fear this time, but from the weight of finality. Your parents have been notified, Holloway adds gently. They're on their way. Colin swallows hard. Okay, he says, his voice steady despite everything. Connor Parker has been found. Sunday, May 12th, Connor meets them. It happens in a quiet room at the police station chosen for its neutrality. Plain walls, soft chairs, a box of tissues on a table. Detective Holloway is there, standing slightly to the side, and a psychologist sits nearby, unobtrusive but attentive. Connor's hands are damp. His heart feels too large for his chest. He stands when the door opens. Amber enters first. She stops the moment she sees him. For a split second, no one moves. Then her hand flies to her mouth, a sound escaping her that is half sob, half breath. Josh is right behind her, frozen, eyes locked on Connor's face, as if afraid the image might dissolve if he blinks. Connor doesn't wait for instructions. He takes a step forward. Then another. Amber reaches him first. She wraps her arms around him tightly, as if anchoring him to the world, her whole body shaking. Connor hesitates only a fraction of a second before returning the embrace. It feels strange and familiar at the same time, like something he has done before in another life. Josh joins them, one hand on Connor's back, the other pressed briefly to his own eyes. He doesn't say anything. He doesn't have to. When they finally pull back, Amber cups Connor's face in her hands, studying every detail, tears streaming freely now. You're here, she whispers. Only then does Connor notice the boy standing a little behind them, dark brown-haired, nervous, hands shoved into his pockets, watching with wide, uncertain eyes. Ethan. Connor turns toward him. Hey bro, he says softly, unsure of what else to say. Ethan hesitates, then steps forward. Connor kneels slightly, lowering himself to Ethan's height, and opens his arms. After a beat, Ethan moves into them. The hug is awkward, careful, but real. Connor closes his eyes. This time, the warmth stays. Later that day, Connor shows his parents around the group home. He walks a little taller than usual, pride cutting through the lingering uncertainty. He introduces them to Mason, to Tyler, to the other boys who have been his world for years. They shake hands, exchange awkward smiles, small jokes. Amber listens closely as the caregivers explain routines, school, what kind of kid Connor has been. She asks careful questions. Josh thanks them more than once, his voice thick with gratitude. Connor saves his room for last. This is it, he says, pushing the door open. Welcome to my world. It's small, shared, ordinary. Posters on the wall. 2 rumpled beds. Shelf with books and personal things. Pictures of Connor and his friends. But to Connor, it's proof of life. Amber steps inside slowly, touching the doorframe as if marking the moment. You did good, she tells him quietly. That evening they eat dinner together at a nearby restaurant. The table is crowded with plates and hesitant laughter. Amber and Josh tell Connor stories from his early years. How he used to sing loudly in the car, how he never sat still, how he once insisted on wearing a superhero cape to daycare for a week straight. Connor listens, hungry for every detail. In return, he talks about the group home, about school, about Mason and Tyler. He makes sure to include Ethan, asking him about soccer, about his favorite video games, about school. Ethan relaxes visibly, inch by inch, drawn into the conversation. That night, Connor sleeps in his bed at the group home one last time. His parents and Ethan stay at a hotel nearby, close enough but giving him space. In the dark, Mason lies awake beside him. You gonna forget us? Mason asks quietly. Connor turns toward him. Never. They talk in whispers about everything and nothing until the words run out. Before they fall asleep, they make a promise to stay friends for life, no matter how many miles end up between them, no matter which state they call home. The next morning, Amber returns to help Connor pack. She folds his clothes carefully, pausing now and then as if trying to memorize each small detail. Josh spends the morning at the school. He meets with the principal, speaks to Connor's teachers, and signs papers. He clears out Connor's locker, holding the door open a moment longer than necessary before closing it for the last time. By the time they regroup, Connor's life has been reduced to a few pack bags. Not an ending, a beginning. Back in Roseville, the story becomes public. A press conference is being held outside the police station. Cameras line the street, microphones clustered together, reporters calling out names and questions before anyone has even stepped forward. Detective Mark Holloway stands at the podium first, composed and steady, outlining the facts with careful precision. He speaks about the kidnapping, about the years of investigation, about the DNA confirmation that has finally brought one of the Parker triplets home. Then Amber and Josh step up beside him. Amber's hands tremble slightly as she grips the edge of the podium. Josh stands close, his hand resting firmly at her back. When she speaks, her voice is emotional but clear. She thanks the police, the people who never stopped sharing their son's story, and, most of all, her son for coming home. Connor is home, she says, and we are endlessly grateful. Josh speaks next. He talks about hope, about never giving up, even when the years pass and answers don't come. He asks for privacy for Connor and for their family as they begin to rebuild what was taken from them. Flashbulbs explode. Headlines are already being written. One of the Parker triplets found. Missing for 10 years, now home. A miracle in Roseville. Within hours, the story spreads across the country. News networks interrupt regular programming. Social media fills with old photos of three identical boys, now paired with images of a 13-year-old who looks hauntingly like the child who vanished. One of the Parker triplets has been found. And with that truth comes another, quiet, heavy, unresolved. Two are still missing. Two are still out there. Maybe together, maybe alone. When Connor finally comes home to the yellow house, everything feels both too small and impossibly large at the same time. The familiar unfamiliarity presses in on him as he walks through the front door, sunlight spilling across the wooden floor just as it must have years ago. He moves down the hallway without speaking, drawn by something deeper than memory. The door to the old bedroom stands open. Inside, three small beds sit exactly as they always have, neatly made, untouched, frozen in time. Connor steps inside. His chest tightens. A memory surfaces suddenly and without warning. Laughter, small bodies tumbling over one another, a sense of belonging so complete it almost hurts. He walks to the bed on the left and stops. "This was my bed," he says softly. He sits down, fingers curling into the blanket as tears slide freely down his cheeks. Across from him, the two other beds remain empty, waiting. Amber is there in an instant. She wraps her arms around him, holding him close, rocking slightly as if he were still small enough to carry. Connor leans into her, letting himself be held, letting the grief come. Later, Josh suggests turning the guest room into Connor's new bedroom. Something fresh, something his. Father and son spend the afternoon moving furniture, speaking in easy fragments. The work gives them something to do with their hands while they slowly learn how to be together again. In the days that follow, they repaint the walls a deep, dark blue. They buy new furniture, and Connor fills the space with pieces of his past, old posters, photos, and a few trophies he brought with him from the group home. Josh surprises him with a new gaming PC, and together they build a cozy corner just for that, and Connor loves it. Most evenings, he's online, gaming and chatting with his old friends Mason and Tyler. Sometimes Amber lingers outside the door, listening to him laugh and talk with the boys. She smiles, and it feels like a third of her heart has finally begun to heal. Connor adapts faster than anyone expects, even himself. He makes a new video for YouTube. He tells his story in his own words, about being found, about learning his real name, about the life he didn't know he had. The video spreads quickly, shared across platforms, watched by millions. Messages pour in from strangers offering support, wonder, and hope. At home, Connor and Ethan begin the slow, awkward dance of becoming brothers. At first, they don't quite know where to stand with each other. Then the awkwardness fades. They argue. They laugh. They annoy each other relentlessly. They defend each other just as fiercely. Connor makes new friends in the neighborhood. Across the street lives Trent, also 13. One afternoon, Trent mentions, casually, almost nervously, that they used to play together before the kidnapping. He brings out old photos. 4 boys, sunburned and smiling, unaware of what was coming. Connor stares at the images for a long time. When summer ends, Connor starts 8th grade at his new school in Roseville. He walks into the building with a backpack slung over his shoulder, nervous but steady. His life isn't the one he left behind. It's the one he gets to build now. In February, Connor celebrates his birthday for the first time on the right day, February 16th. He wakes up that morning with a strange sense of anticipation, the date echoing quietly in his mind. This birthday isn't a placeholder. It isn't a guess. It belongs to him. His parents keep the day low-key at first, pancakes, candles, quiet smiles that linger a little longer than usual. Connor thinks that's it. He's already grateful. Then the doorbell rings. When he opens the door and sees Mason and Tyler standing there, backpacks slung over their shoulders, grinning like idiots, his brain freezes for a second before his heart catches up. Surprise, Mason and Tyler shout. Connor laughs, stunned, and then pulls them into a hug without thinking. Ethan is filming the scene, which Connor later uploads to his channel. It quickly gets thousands of likes and views. Mason and Tyler are staying a few days sleeping on the floor in Connor's bedroom. That evening, the house fills with people. A real party, a 14th birthday. Trent comes, along with some of Connor's new friends from school. The living room buzzes with noise and music and overlapping conversations. And then there's family. Aunts and uncles he's never met but somehow recognizes them from pictures. Cousins who look like him in small, unexpected ways. Stories tumble out, about his parents when they were young, about the triplets as toddlers, about moments Connor never knew existed but now somehow belong to him too. His grandparents are there, all four of them. He's already met them, but seeing them together feels different. They hug him carefully, reverently, as if afraid he might disappear again. When it's time for cake, everyone gathers close. 14 candles flicker in front of him. Connor closes his eyes before blowing them out. He doesn't wish to be found. He already has been. He wishes for his brothers, for answers, for time. When he opens his eyes and blows out the candles, the room erupts in applause and laughter. Connor smiles, wide, genuine, unguarded. For the first time in his life, his birthday feels exactly like what it is meant to be, a celebration of being here.